Millets. It's a word we've now been hearing in India way more often than we used to, especially with the International Year of Millets in 2023.
Millet is probably one of the most ancient grains that has been around. It has withstood the test of time. Several excavation sites reveal remains of millets that were prevalent back in the day. Sangam literature talks extensively about millets that were used. I mean, today we can probably count the number of millets that are there. But back in the day, if you take the example of just ragi alone, there were several hundred varieties of that ragi millet alone. So all that is obviously gone, and there are efforts that's been made to revive.
Food has always been more than just sustenance. It's a reflection of our history, culture, and identity. Over the past episodes of Inherit, we've explored the deep connections between food and heritage, from biryani to leaf-wrapped cooking. And today, as we bring our food series to a close, we turn our attention to a grain that has persisted over thousands of years: millets. Hi, I'm Kartika, a fellow learner who's excited by all things heritage and is forever curious to know more about the many forms in which heritage shapes our everyday lives. Follow me as I tag along with Team Inherit as they explore the multiple stories and history behind millets.
I think millets are much misunderstood, and they are misunderstood for the last few years. They were traditionally considered, they continue to be considered, poor man's grain and non-cereals. So they were not aspirational, and their beneficial qualities were known to people. They were consumed in large quantities all across the land. It was not as if they were unknown, but their being elevated to a level of a superfood or a crop which can combat everything, which can meet the challenge of climate change, which can help towards poverty alleviation, which can get your food free from pesticides and chemical fertilizers. So everything is supposed to be focused on millets. And we tend to forget that millets have been, well, known in this country, eaten in this country for generations.
Because there's a wide variety of millets that exist, and also because there's so much cultural and culinary diversity in India across regions and communities, that means that you have a lot of traditional dishes around the country that incorporate millets in various forms.
Finger millet, pearl millet, foxtail millet, barnyard millet, kodo millet, little millet, the list goes on. Each variety, unique in taste, texture, and nutrition, has played a role in shaping India's diverse food traditions. Whether ground into flour, cooked whole, or fermented, millets have found their way into every corner of our cuisine.
Some of the dishes that really stand out and that are really prominent today across different parts of the country range from breads to rice-based dishes or rice-like dishes to desserts. For example, in Himachal Pradesh, there's jangori ki khichdi, which is khichdi that's made with barnyard millet. In Uttar Pradesh, you have china ki roti, which is made with proso millet. In down south, in Karnataka, there's the famous ragi mudde, which is steamed dumpling that's made with ragi. There's sama payasam or little millet payasam in Tamil Nadu. In Meghalaya, there's putaro, which is again a type of pancake that has rice and millet flour that's mixed together to make it. So there are dishes across the country that feature millets in various forms.
If you go to some temples that have the Shakti form of worship, you have the devotees making Ragi Koozh, which is basically ragi flour cooked in water. And this would form like a ragi ball, right? That would then be fermented overnight and mixed and diluted in buttermilk and served to all the devotees. The reason why they would do this is because one Adi Masam that happens in Tamil Nadu is the peak of summer. and you have ragi, you have the fermentation to add to it. All of this cools your body down. It is gut friendly. And most importantly, a recipe like the Ragi Koozh, which has withstood the test of time. I mean, it's been there for several centuries together, and devotees have been making this over and over and over a period of time.
There's a lot of dishes around the country that's made with fermented ragi. It's called ambali in South India. It's called mandia page in Odisha. You also have alcoholic beverages that are made with millets, like tongba in Sikkim.
I love madue ka halwa. It's called madue ki badi in hills. You take the madua and you just make a halwa, which is a coarser texture. You could have a madue ki kheer with a trickle of honey. It is very good. I like a madue ki roti, but I would be dishonest to say that I don't like madue ki roti. But the madue ki roti which I like has already gone one up aspirational step. It is madue ki roti with lots of ghee, jaggery, eaten comfortably. I like a jowar ki roti. I like a bajre ki roti very much. I don't like a bajre ki khichdi. But I think I like the bajre ka khakra. I like the popped bajra as a snack if you are having a tipple. I mean, but you know, these are I like a lot of millets, but I like a lot of millets which do not require extra exertion in the kitchen, or not only exertion but time spent.
It is very easy to overlook the cost, paid largely by women, in ensuring the continuation of traditions. Thus, it becomes important to consider ways in which we keep our culinary traditions alive while ensuring agency, choice, and practicality. Because food nourishes not just our bodies, but also our sense of self.
Millets have been a part of our cultural heritage always. I mean, I remember the folk tale from Gujarat, Saurashtra, where my mother was born, that a princess was married, the girl was very beautiful, and she was married to the king. And everybody thought she would be very happy in the palace. But she was wasting away. So they got all the Vaidyas, Hakims, physicians to say what is wrong. And one of the sharper Vaidyas said, she's missing her home food. And what was the home food? She was getting rich diet in a palace, but she was missing her bajre ki rotli. And the day her diet was got replenished with bajre ki rotli, she regained her health. Folk tales have talk about this. Folk songs commemorate these, but they commemorate other grains as well.
There are lots of examples of millets finding a place in rituals and festivals in India as well. Typically, in a lot of the harvest festivals, especially in the beginning of the year in January, say whether it's Pongal in Tamil Nadu, Sankranti in Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, Maghi in Punjab, you'll see that, you know, millets along with other grains are celebrated. You also have, say, during Navratri, which is celebrated across the country, there is a 9-day period where, you know, traditional cereals like rice and wheat are not consumed, and millets are the alternative starch form. Apart from that, there are also, you know, seed saving festivals. Like the most famous one is probably the Burlang Yatra that happens in Odisha. It's celebrated by the Kutiya tribe, and here the farmers and the communities gather to exchange heirloom seeds, and there's a lot of feasting and celebration involved around these millet seed varietals. So as with a lot of traditional foods, you see millets permeate into, you know, large and relevant and important cultural events and festivals as well.
Let's take the example of the Palani Murugan temple. One of the prasadams made there even today is Thenum Thinai Maavu, which is Ten in Tamil is honey and Thinai Maavu is a foxtail millet flour. Now, why would a Murugan temple offer this prasadam? Now, let's literally do a drone shot and understand the topography of the Murugan temple. It is surrounded by the Western Ghats, home to the Palian and the Pulian tribal communities. Temple prasadams were anything that people cultivated, people reared, people grew, they offered. And what is Thenum Thinai Maavum? Ten is something that is there in the forest, Millet is something that they always grown. So these two would be made, mixed together and offered to the Lord Muruga.
Food is often a marker of class and aspiration. Once, millets were the everyday grain of the common man, while rice and wheat were seen as symbols of wealth. Today, the roles have reversed. Millets are priced as premium, while rice and wheat are subsidized. But this shift isn't just about preference. It's about access, policy, and the way larger food systems shape our individual choices.
I had gone to one of these tribal settlements in the Western Ghats. I was trying to understand their cuisine, talk to them. There was this old man who was constantly looking at me. I knew he was waiting to engage in conversation. So he came up to me and said when he was a kid, they had a lot of access to millets. He grew up eating millets and millet-based recipes. But sadly today, they have access only to polished rice and wheat because there is a public distribution system that gives them sustenance, that gives them food, and that is only rice and wheat. He said back in the day, it was only the rich who could afford rice and it was the common man or the poor class who could afford millets, but today it is reversed.
I think what has happened is the decline of millets has slowly happened, not overnight. It has happened with industrialization, it has happened with urbanization, mostly unplanned. It has happened with people aspiring to eat what they did not have access to. So if you did not have access to refined sugar, refined salt, refined wheat flour, maida, you would like to eat things made with that. If you are having a naan, it is made of maida again. Rumali roti needs a wheat flour with gluten. Now the trouble is that if you saw people eating this and thought that these were aspirational dishes, why would you have dark, thick roti which did not have any, and you were eating it day in and day out, and some of it was being fed as animal fodder. So I think the decline of millets happened partly because of this, and it happened not today. It did not happen in past 50 years. It happened when people moved out. Millets were not forgotten. If you look around, in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, in Rajasthan, in Haryana, in Karnataka, in Deccan Plateau, in Uttaranchal, in Purvanchal, in Uttarakhand, where were the millets forgotten? They were being eaten right, left and center. And they are still being cropped. The total world production of millets, a very large part is India. And these states, the 10 states in India, have the largest chunk of it. So what are we talking about? And people ate millet-made preparations on all days of ritual fasting because they were not supposed to be cereals. So we had not forgotten jangura, we had not forgotten kotu ka atta, we had not forgotten samak ke chawal, we had not forgotten ramdana, amaranthus. Why don't we ask the question, forget about millets, why has agricultural production declined in India? Why has employment in agricultural sector is declined drastically? And even there is a disguised employment in agricultural sector. The great father of the Green Revolution, Dr. Swaminathan Bharat accepted this, that Green Revolution was probably a mistake, which poisoned the earth, poisoned the water, and took the farmer away because it became mechanized, it became capital intensive.
During the Green Revolution, high yielding crops like rice and wheat were promoted, which meant that the consumption of varieties like millets were reduced. With that, what also happened is that there was enough of technology that was being developed for processing of rice and wheat and not for millets.
It became hybrid crops, it became more chemical fertilizers, and I think that's it.
The decline of millets wasn't accidental. The Green Revolution brought efficiency, but it also introduced monocultures that prioritized yield over diversity. And in the process, resilient indigenous grains like millets were left behind.
I feel that there are lots of misconceptions about millets. Take, for example, the consumption of millets by different castes. You have the Rajput princes in Rajasthan eating bajra. You have in Haryana those who claim to be the descendants of Krishna, the Yadavas, they eat bajra. You go to Saurashtra, which is the Krishna's homeland, there is bajra. You have these people, and they are, you remember the Mahabharata story. Sudama was a Brahman, a poor Brahman, a classmate of Krishna, and when he goes to meet his long lost friend at the behest of his wife, he takes kodo chawal. which is a coarse grain millet kind of chawal supplement. He takes it there to him. So the Brahman was eating it. I think the misconception is that the taboos in India are not about grains, either coarse or fine. Millets, as I said earlier, was a grain of abundance for areas where poverty prevailed. If you are in Maharashtra, the bhakri, which is made with jowar, recognizes no caste barrier. The barrier is the poverty, the social class.
Millets are so significant and relevant today is because in the era of the climate crisis that we live in and the water scarcity that is there, millets stand out from other cereal grains like rice and wheat for the non-dependency on irrigation.
They are resistant to climatic changes, they resist pests, they don't need chemical fertilizers to protect them, they are a hardy crop, and more important than all, they need very little water, irrigation or care.
From a very personal point of view or in the context of consumption, millets have a lot of fiber in them. They have low glycemic index, so they are good for people who have issues around blood sugar levels. They also are rich in vitamins and minerals like iron, phosphorus, magnesium, and they tend to be more filling as a grain, where you typically stay full and satiated much longer and therefore require a smaller quantity.
All that is quite true, but that's not true of all millets in equal measure. So I would like to clarify at the outset that when we talk of millets, we don't talk of millets as one category, one blanket category, black box. We talk of a particular millet and we try to worry about qualities, nutritive and otherwise, aesthetic of those things. We should also not forget that while the crop is easy to grow, cooking these ancient grains is not very easy.
There is a beautiful phrase in Tamil called Unave Marundu, Marunde Unavu, which is food is medicine and medicine is food. Now, if you look at, say, some of the communities, the first gruel or porridge, kanji as they would call in Tamil, that is given to a baby when the baby is maybe 4 or 6 months is a millet-based porridge. Usually a ragi porridge is what is given.
We have almost lost the art of cooking these. So we have to soak them overnight. The cooking time is much longer, which is inconvenient for people who are living in cities. Then they don't necessarily taste very well. So you have to enhance their flavor. We have forgotten the taste of good millets. I remember my mother in Uttarakhand who would say, "Ye madua meetha nahi hai." So this sweetness of the grain, of the finger millets, was not there. Now people don't have the taste for madua. They have it once in a while and they eat it in a manner in which traditionally they were not consumed.
So when we're talking about a millet-based diet, just like we talk about any diet or any food that we eat in moderation, I think that is the key word, moderation. Because millet is something that is actually a little hard to digest. Now, if you look at, say, our ancestors, when they had food made with millets, like a ragi mudde, that is a ragi ball that is usually had with like seasonal greens and several other recipes that were made using millets, they also had that kind of physical work. They would probably go into the farms, actually plow the fields, or they would go visit the fields. There was a lot more physical labor that was involved. They were on the move. We're talking about steps in today's context. I think by default, they would clock about 12 to 15,000 steps a day, if not more. So that was how active they were. And for that, it needed a millet-based diet. But in today's context, I would say a moderation, maybe twice a week with millets is something that is good.
I think people in different regions have always been eating millets in different ways. So if we want to revive, it is not as if that I will prescribe to somebody, millets are good for you. The rougher it goes in, the smoother it comes out the next morning. So you say it is good for your diabetes, good for your blood pressure, good for your constipation. But the trouble is, I'm not going to take to millets as medicine. You need even your medicine sugar coated. So millets have to be tastier and easier and affordable. And the recipe should meet my particular mood in a day. So that, I think, is the primary challenge.
While food choices might seem personal, Their impact is societal. What we eat affects our health, our environment, and even livelihoods. Millets stand at the intersection of all three. Choosing millets isn't just about nostalgia. It's about shaping a more sustainable future while drawing from our repository of traditional knowledge.
So I think millets, a particular millet, opens the way for you to explore the palette of a particular zone of taste in India, go into the climatic variations in the country and how the dishes were prepared and consumed. So I think what we need to do is to go back to a millet, go back to traditional recipes in that region and try to adapt them to contemporary palate and the tastes of modern English.
As we're noticing this resurgence of millets, it's important to acknowledge that it's, native indigenous communities, tribal communities, Adivasis around the country who have played the most important role in preserving millet consumption and practices all these years. In a way, the renewed focus on millets also goes to show that today, increasingly, we are more and more, or we rather have to be more and more conscious of where our food comes from, how it's grown, how it impacts the people who grow it. So with millets, for example, while on the consumer front, there's a lot of promotion of millets and consumption of millets, you're also noticing that there's context that's given to why people should consume it. The fact that it's more nutritious, the fact that it's climate resilient, the fact that it's less water intensive. So in a way, it's for me personally as a chef, it's a fantastic example of how through effective communication you can get people to care more about the impact of our food choices on your own health, on the communities and the environment, and not just care but also act on it. And that is something you seldom see as widespread initiatives like we've seen, especially with the International Year of Millets in 2023.
I think the choices an individual makes may appear very little minuscule in impact on the environment or society, but when you aggregate them, they make a major difference. So I would not be foolish enough to say that they don't make a difference. But the choice you make has to be a choice which is made consistently and also in the larger context, keeping in mind if I'm getting, I can't get the millets out of my mind now. If I'm getting my millets or organic food or vegan things delivered at home, my carbon footprint is far larger than it would be otherwise. I would be eating non-millet foods also. So I think the individual choice makes a difference, but how many of these choices are for a day, for a month, for display when friends are visiting, that I'm a woke person, I eat millets, I'm a healthy person. And then talk about it is a talking point. But the question in itself is very significant. Each individual choice aggregated in totality makes a great difference towards the planet, towards livelihood, towards sustainability.
There's not just government intervention, but there's also, a lot of different industries that have come together to make millets more accessible to, whether it's processing, whether it's in packaging, whether it's in increasing the shelf life, whether it's in manufacturing of millet-based products. Chefs are taking note. So when you have this multi-dimensional set of actions going around different parts of the ecosystem and different stakeholders across the value chain for the end user, the consumer, it also expands the horizon in terms of the variety of foods we consume. As a chef, for me, it's very stark that our diets are becoming more and more homogeneous, and this diversity of millets included into this mix makes for a much more exciting, versatile, diverse, delicious future of our plates.
And so, our journey with food in Inherit comes full circle. From royal kitchens to temple offerings, from everyday meals to forgotten traditions, food has always been a bridge between the past and the present. Millets remind us that what we eat isn't just about taste or trends. It's about history, resilience, and the choices we make for the future. As we close this chapter on food, we hope you carry these stories with you. Because heritage isn't just something we inherit, it's something we continue to shape.